Hey y'all, Flipper Fred here. Thanks for joining me today. In this video, we're going to take a look at my favorite knives from OK Knives. I got all of these. Well, actually, I included a special mention. I actually got this one on AliExpress. We'll talk about that in a minute. But if I were to get it again, I would probably go to OK Knives for that as well. Otherwise, be aware that probably none of these knives are the real things. These are all probably not real knives because based on what I paid for them, they certainly didn't cost what the real versions of these seem to cost. So just be aware of that. These all come with caveats. These are not going to be like what I think if these were real knives, because you'll see there's some real flaws in a couple of these in particular. So this is just, I paid my money. I bought these knives from an online website, and you know what? I actually like to carry and use some of them. We're going to take a look at what I like to carry out of this bunch right here. How about that? Before we get started, if you would please give me a subscribe and a thumbs up down there. Hit that notification bell. That does so much to help little guys like me get out on the YouTubes. You know, I don't have sponsors. People don't send me knives to review. I just pay my money and buy some knives that I like and are cool, and I want to come on here and try to share them with you a little bit. All right, let's dive in here. So the first one I got to take off the table, and I did another review of these knives, is this knife here that is made to look like the Benchmade Narrows. It is incredibly thin in terms of the thinness of this knife, and these are real titanium scales. It matches up quite closely with the original, except a couple of major issues. First of all, this knife is 7.5 inches long, and the real one is 8 inches long. So first of all, we're starting a ½ inch shorter. That's not insignificant. It doesn't matter to me. I don't really care how this compares. I just care, is this a good knife that I enjoy using? There's a couple of downsides for this thing. First off, because it's so thin, that can wear on you a little bit. You know, if you're trying to grip down on this thing and squeeze the heck out of that to do any kind of hard cutting, those thin little titanium slabs right there, and they are chamfered a little bit, but all that does is make the point even sharper right there. So it definitely will tend to dig into your hands a little bit if you're doing any kind of hard use. I don't think this knife was made for any kind of hard use. It's just a nice ultralight titanium EDC kind of knife. It's got a great sharpening choil, but this has a major fatal flaw in it. It's going to be hard to see. Let me see if I can block everything else out. You see that ding in that blade right there? Right there where my thumbnail is. What I have discovered is how these were made. I got one from OK Knives, and then the first day I was flipping it, and I noticed, oh my gosh, there's a huge chip in my blade. So I reached out, said, hey, can you guys replace it? They said, no problem at all. We'll send you another one. Just hold on to the one you got, throw it away, keep it, give it away, do whatever you want with it. I'd give it away, but I don't know that anybody really wants a knife with a ding in the blade like that. Of course, you can sharpen it out, but here's the problem. It's going to keep reoccurring. What I discovered, to make a long story short, is that if you don't have the lock pressed down, then there's no way it can touch this backspacer. However, when the lock is pressed down on this knife, you can see the blade sinks in much deeper. And what's happening is when you go to close this knife, that tink right there was the blade banging up against that spacer. So it's just going to probably continue to chip or roll that blade right there like you see it. As such, that makes it basically a non-user for me. Plus, it's not just all that comfortable anyhow. So this will probably be my least favorite of the bunch here in the room. Boy, these are some tough competition. I got to tell you, I really have enjoyed all of these knives. Probably the next one that I'm least likely to carry as much is going to be this one here, this stitch-looking knife. It's a great knife. I love the carbon fiber handles. This definitely puts a smile on your face. Despite being a relatively thick blade, this thing is actually quite slicey indeed. This is a nice sharp blade. Came out of the box. It strops up very nicely. Definitely handle any kind of hard tasks you want to throw at it. It's just fun. It's a little fidget friendly. It's a little big for just a fidgeting kind of knife. You can see you can fail it. That's just because the springs on this thing are pretty strong. So you got to throw it with some force to get it out there. Definitely a finger guillotine. Will chop off fingers if you don't keep them clear. Love the design. Puts a smile on my face. I do enjoy carrying it sometimes, but it's just a little big, a little bit of overkill. So that one's going to probably go away as well. Here's where it starts getting like real tough for me. So this shark cub looking knife that I got, when I first got it, it was basically unusable. The spring was so incredibly strong that it literally just hurt your finger after 3 or 4 times of opening and closing this knife. So I had to do some work on the spring. I compressed it for a day or two, and that kind of made the spring much softer. But then what I discovered was the lock bar itself didn't fit, so I had to literally sand off both sides of that lock bar just so it would slide smoothly. I realized even without the spring in there, this thing wouldn't even slide inside the scales. So I did that, and now it's pretty good. You can see I can still fail it quite a bit because that spring is quite strong. I mean, there's no detent ball, obviously, on these knives. It's just the force that the spring of the lock bar puts constantly on the tang of the blade as it goes out. It's a nice, strong knife. You know, you're not going to break that lock. It's certainly a well-known, very good design. It's a nice size. It's relatively thin. It fits well in your hand. It has a nice choke-up spot. I don't like the bounciness. So when you bring it back in, it bounces that couple extra times. Hear that bounce right there? That's what I'm trying to get you to hear, where it bounces. Do y'all have one of these? Does y'all's bounce and spring and make that springy noise? That's kind of annoying to me, which is a shame because I just really need to give this more time. This is still a relatively new knife in my collection, and I just haven't carried it. You know, when you have a lot of knives, you try to carry all of them. And so this one just hasn't got enough time rotation. I love the blade. I love the handle, the design, the style. It fits me well. Just haven't carried it much. And that bouncy spring is a little bit annoying, so it can't make it into my top 3, but it's still in the top 4 there. Now we're getting down to some tough stuff here. So let me say this. I didn't buy this one on OK Knives. They do have it, and if I were to buy it again, I would buy it there. I did get this one on AliExpress. This is obviously made to look like the 𝗵𝗏𝗀𝗀. I don't believe it is a real 𝗵𝗏𝗀. I've done a review where we kind of point out some things that make it not really an 𝗵𝗏𝗀. Not the least of which is it's running on nice bearings, and this thing has broken in beautifully well. In terms of those bearings and that action, that kind of almost hydraulic-y drop shut, nice centered blade, good stout blade, hollow grind. Man, I really do love this knife. I can't get rid of that one yet. One of the things I love about this knife, and here was the problem that I had, to go on a little side trip with one of my absolute favorite knives, but I got this on Temu, so I couldn't put it in here, is titanium against steel, and that wears down over time. Titanium is just too soft, and so that lends itself over time to a little bit of lock rock on there. Now, if you're holding it down, there's no lock rock because you're holding it up against the blade. It's not like it's going to fall free or anything like that. But I was worried about that with the 𝗵𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀. But if you know how these are made, there's a ceramic detent ball on the face of this up here that is always in contact with the tang of the blade. So there is no titanium contacting the blade, which means that thing is going to be solid forever. This is just like a Goldilocks size for me. It's a definite full-size knife. Doesn't have the choke-up spot or the sheep's foot blade style that I like, but this is really a very fidget-friendly. It's fun. It's smooth. I love it. So I'm gonna hold on to that, and I think what I'm going to have to do in the number 3 spot is go with the Bowie here. The problem, again, just like what I was explaining a second ago, is this is titanium on steel. So over a period of time, that's just going to wear down and loosen up, just like the 𝗫𝗍𝗃 did. At the moment, it's still new, and it's very smooth, riding on bearings, and I love the action of this knife, so I definitely do love carrying it. Big fat belly blade style, nice and sharp, flat grind, good knife, definitely good knife. The real ones, by the way, in case you don't know, on the real ones, they will do what's called a carburizing process, where they basically harden the titanium by heating it so that the titanium's almost as strong as a steel. It does not wear down prematurely like you saw with the 𝗫𝗍𝗃. This one, it just haven't had it long enough and flipped it as many times as that 𝗫𝗍𝗃, so that's why it still locks up beautifully and tight. So I love carrying this knife. I will definitely keep that in my rotation. Now I'm down to my last 2 here. Haven't mentioned the Drunken yet. But lately, I find myself keeping this one out and carrying it with me all day long. The action on this, again, on bearings, is just incredibly smooth. It has broken in so well. I don't even know that the real one rides on bearings. I know that the 𝗵𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀 is on washers. I just love bearings. I love the smoothness of that action. I love the milled titanium. and milled carbon fiber. It's hard to see because of the carbon fiber, but this is milled out with that little drunken pattern just the same as that. And unlike the 𝗫𝗍𝗃, this has a steel lock bar insert on it. And it also has steel over travel. Not that that's a big issue, but anyhow, so you have steel against steel, so I don't have to worry about that lock wearing out like I did with the 𝗫𝗍𝗃. Otherwise, it's very similar in shape and size and design. Nice big long blade, thin slicey blade, great for draw cuts, which is what I do a lot of, but it's still got that little bit of belly. I can get down and rock it. You can get your fingers underneath it and do some, good table action. So this is definitely, and it's nice and lightweight. They have heavily milled out the inside. I did a whole review. You can go see that. They've heavily milled out all the inside of this titanium. It's really incredible what they've done, especially at the price for this knife. But it's just so smooth and lightweight. Fits in my pocket nice. I did have to bend the clip a little bit higher, which was not a big problem. Just take it off, bend it a few times in the right places. Now it slips in and out of the pocket all the way, fits nice. It was just squeezed down a little bit tight, so it was hard to get your pants all the way up. So with that change having been made, man, I think right now I'm gonna give this one the edge. This has got to be my number one. It just is my number one go-to. But I'll tell you, for the longest while, and still, I tend to throw this in my pocket as much as anything, which is a real surprise to me. I thought this would have been kind of a too big and too heavy knife that I didn't like as much. But the action has just gotten so incredibly smooth on it that I just love carrying it. Feels good, stays nice and sharp for me. Nice big heavy blade. I feel like this will tackle anything that I'm going to throw at it over a given day. So if I thought I had maybe a little harder use of a day, I probably would throw this in my pocket. But just for general enjoyment around the house, sitting at at my desk flipping a knife, this one is the one I find sitting next to me most of the time. So there you go. Hopefully that is helpful to y'all. I can put these back in reverse order now, in the kind of the order in which I removed them from the table. Being my number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Hopefully that is interesting and is somewhat educational for you guys. As always, if you would hit that subscribe and notification bell, give your boy a thumbs up. I need some YouTube loves. Thank y'all for sticking with me. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for all the support and the comments, y'all. That makes a big difference. You never quite know, does anybody even care about the stuff you're sharing? So thanks so much for all that. Y'all have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.